Chapter 8, Holding On Between the Table and the Garden. I shall never forget when I was in seminary sitting in homiletics class in my middle year. My homiletics professor for that year was none other than Dr. Henry Mitchell. He said something that completely revolutionized how I looked at certain scriptures. He said that sometimes the best preaching is not what is on the line, but what is between the line. That you have to use your sanctified imagination to put the pieces together of the spaces in between the words. To bless me and help me. That bless me and help me. And it is seen right in the story of Jesus in every single synoptic version of this scene. There is a space in this story that we often skip over too quickly. It's not in a verse. It's in the space between verses. It's not in the communion, and it's not quite in the garden. It's in the middle. It's in the moment between the song of the upper room and the agony of Gethsemane. It's that holy in between. It's what I would call the hallway between the table and the garden. The hallway between is where the real faith walk happens. Anybody can lift their hands at the table. Anybody can cry out in the garden. But it's in the walk between, the space between fellowship and frustration, between communion and crisis, where your soul has to hold on. I've learned that the devil's favorite place to mess with us is right in that in-between space. The between space is the space of transition, leaving one place and moving toward another. It has been said that people don't really hate change, they hate transition. Transition can be defined as the messy middle. It is where you are sometimes left alone with your thoughts. You have to learn how to faithfully handle the transition. Jesus has just finished the table talk. He's just sung the hymn. He's just looked Judas in the face and handed him bread. He's poured wine with one hand and held weight with the other. And now he's walking toward Gethsemane. Can you imagine what's stirring in his spirit between the table and the trees? So what happened in between? We're not told. There's nothing written about it. But let's deduce some things between the lines. I think 3 words can describe what happened on the walk from the upper room to the garden. Silence, stillness, shifting. All on that walk. It's the walk nobody preaches about. But that walk on that night was holy. It was in that walk that Jesus had to manage tension. It was in that walk that he had to hold together the humanity and the divinity. He is fully aware that death is surely coming, and he still has to lead men who don't even understand the moment. He has to wrestle with the pull of his emotions while staying on course with his assignment. Imagine that walk. Imagine that tension. That's the tension of the in-between. You're not at the table anymore, but you haven't made it to the garden. You're managing in between, tension between stability and struggle, between peace and pressure, between clarity and chaos. And here's the hard truth. The middle will mesh with you if you don't know how to manage it, because the middle feels like a contradiction. You've already been promised something at the table, but the garden doesn't look like what the table prophesied. At the table, Jesus broke bread and declared victory. At the table, he was composed. At the table, he was leading. But in the garden, he's trembling. In the garden, he's pleading. In the garden, he's sweating and surrendering. We all know those things. But the walk between them, that's where we live most of our lives. We live between the prophecy and the pressure, between the calling and the crushing, between the instruction and the isolation. So let's get practical for a few minutes. How do you hold on between the table and the garden? One, walk with intentionality. Don't let the silence of the in between shake your faith. Just because God isn't speaking doesn't mean God isn't working. Sometimes the walk is where you rehearse what God already said. Jesus doesn't turn back. He doesn't sit down. He walks forward toward pain, yes, but also toward purpose. Secondly, trust what God told you at the table. The table is where the promise was made. The garden is where the promise is tested. But what holds you together in the middle of is remembering what God already said. Jesus didn't receive new instructions in Gethsemane. He simply reaffirmed what he already knew. That's a word for someone who's second guessing your journey. Hear me. Don't undo in your trembling what God told you at the table. Thirdly, don't misinterpret the tension. Just because the walk is heavy doesn't mean you're off track. The heaviness is not a sign of disobedience. It's a sign of destiny. You're feeling the weight of the yes before you get to the place of surrender. Jesus doesn't complain. He doesn't collapse. He walks, because the walk prepares you for the prayer. By the time Jesus gets to the garden, he is ready to pour out. But he doesn't pour too soon. He holds it together long enough to make it to a safe place with the Father. That's the spiritual discipline of emotional timing. Some of us are unraveling in the hallway because we're trying to process pain in public spaces with people who don't carry the grace for our groaning. Jesus holds it in until he gets to the garden. And when he gets there, he doesn't explode. He releases. He releases with language. He releases in prayer. He releases in surrender. But the strength to do that started in the silence of the walk. So here's your revelation. If you can survive the silence, you'll make it to the surrender. If you can walk with answers, you'll pray with clarity. If you can hold on between the table and the garden, God will meet you in the garden. It feels rough on the walk. You have all kinds of thoughts going on in your head. You're not crazy. You're just in the middle. But whatever you do, don't let go, because Gethsemane is waiting and glory is on the other side.